Welcome to Krav Life. I'm Paul Simos, and today we've got a special guest, Mr. Joshua Frye. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing great, sir. Thanks for having me on. It's a good
Um,
afternoon here in sunny Florida.
There we go. I was just going to ask, where are you calling in from today?
So I live in Fort Myers, Florida, and I love it down here.
Nice and warm, I take it.
Yeah, I'm waiting for the October weather because it gets really nice, and that's when people start traveling to our area. So because it's nice, but right now it's still humid.
Where is Fort Myers in relation to stuff that other people would know?
So 2 hours south of Tampa. We are on the other side of South Florida, so the Gulf Coast, Southwest Florida. We are the older side of South Florida.
Okay.
So more laid back than it is Miami side. So it's a different place compared to other parts of the region.
Awesome. All right. So you run a studio there in Fort Myers?
Yep. I have an academy. We call it academy in Fort Myers in the Estero area. It is called the Grounds Mixed Martial Art Academy, and we've been in operation for over 7 years now. So yay!
And keep going, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So at your academy, you guys have Jiu Jitsu, Kickboxing, and Krav Maga, right? And MMA.
Yeah. Yep. We have mixed martial arts, which is like our upgrade program. We have amateur fighters. We have friends, professional fighters. Like one of our friends that trains at our gym once a week is Nico Price. He's currently a UFC fighter. His coaches are friends of mine, and they use our facility a lot. So we have a really wide gamut of programs from Iccs Krav Maga, Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, or Carlson Gracie Fort Myers, and then we are a Rufus Sport affiliate. I'm a black belt under Duke Rufus, and that program is one of our biggest programs to this day. So
nice.
Yep.
So let's talk about your Krav Maga program. How did you yourself get involved in Krav Maga? Like, was Krav Maga one of the first things that you've ever learned, or did you have prior training before Krav?
Yeah, so I'm a kid of the 80s. I started martial arts in 1985.
Nice.
And so I was 7 years old, and I lived outside Chicago, so northern Indiana area. And my Taekwondo instructor was like my father figure. You know, there wasn't many kids in that program back in the day. I remember it was just me and my friend Danny, and it was a whole bunch of adults. Like, I had permission to come to sparring class because I was only 10 years old.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a weird time back then because it was the big growth of the Karate Kid movie and people jumping into, Taekwondo or karate. And so that I did that for like 20 some plus years. And that's how I found Krav Maga. Through a Taekwondo buddy, I was at a school in Florida. And a guy came up to me and he was like, dude, have you heard about this Krav Maga stuff? And it's like, I think it was 1998. It was the year. And he was like, I'm like, yeah, I've heard about that stuff, but what is it really about? Some Israeli stuff? And he's like, yeah, it's really cool, man. You just can use anything as a weapon. So a chair, a stapler, it has nothing to do with forms and sparring. It's all about being aggressive and doing a lot of push-ups. And I'm like, wow, that sounds interesting. And so that's what got me started in Krav is like, what is this stuff all about,
Mm-hmm.
So my first exploration as far as systems was Krav Maga Worldwide in the late 90s. And then I got exposed to it up to their yellow belt curriculum. And then I moved on from there.
Nice. And so did you so were you an affiliate of Krav Maga Worldwide, or were you training at a Krav Maga Worldwide studio?
So we were an affiliate. My Taekwondo organization was ran by Master Bill Clark. Bill Clark's a big name in our martial art industry. And he's the one that had a lot of influence in getting Krav Maga Worldwide over to the United States with Darren Levine and all that system. So it was a co-op thing in the beginning when it first got here to the States. So when we started seeing those DVDs back in the late 90s and those books, Bill Clark was part of that. So that's how I got exposed. So it was Krav Maga Worldwide through the Taekwondo organization I was with.
Nice. And then so you continued on through Krav, eventually ranked for black belt level, right?
I never got black belt in Krav Maga Worldwide. I got frustrated with Taekwondo and the traditionalism and then, the politics. And I was still young. I was in college, and I really got into kickboxing. and I wanted to fight amateur kickboxing. And the current place where I was working, teaching Taekwondo as a college student, and I wanted to try my first amateur fights. And through there, I started fighting in different circles of people, and I got exposed to combat martial arts, and I fell in love with another system that was based out of Israeli martial arts, which was Haganah Fight by Mike Lee Kinerick. And that was a system that really, I was with him for 13 years. That was a system that kind of opened my eyes to a little bit more aggressive Krav Maga and a little bit more ego. And it was pretty intense. So Mike's a pretty intense instructor. And so I was with that organization for a long time. That's what really is the gamut of my Krav. I got up to the highest level of instructorship in their program. I never achieved my black belt under him. I moved on, but it was a good time. I got to meet some really good friends in the industry for reality-based self-defense. And one of the things was a big changer for me was one of the ground survival seminars we did with Mike. One of his friends, Marco Santos, was a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, the highest ranking black belt under the Machados from Brazil. He teaches out of Texas now. He taught a seminar, and he did a couple moves in Jiu-Jitsu, and I was like, what is this stuff? I know I've seen the UFC back in the late 90s, but what is this stuff? Let me try this. And I couldn't do it. I was retarded. I couldn't switch my legs. I was like, ah. And so the first time in a long time after being in martial arts for 26 years back then, I wanted to find out what jiu-jitsu is about. So through my Krav Maga and Mike Lee and fight, I fell in love with Brazilian jiu-jitsu. And, 12 years later now, I'm a Brazilian jiu-jitsu black belt because of that. So it's through Krav I got jiu-jitsu.
It's like everything's connected, eh?
Yes, sir. Everything is connected.
It is. Okay, and then how did you end up with the ICCS?
So a true story. I got with Haganah Fight. I started shooting with a Dudevan veteran. His name is Garrett McKean. I did a lot of pistol courses. So what I loved about Haganah and Mike Lee's philosophy was always evolving, always getting better, always keep training. Don't rest on your rank. And got exposed to Israeli methodology of point shooting with pistol, and then we got into rifles. And this was years ago. This is before it was kind of picking up in the industry as far as Krav Maga schools being exposed to this kind of training. And so I was searching out guys who actually fought in IDF that are stateside, and I started shooting like crazy. I mean, I did like 8 courses in 5 years with Dudevan veterans. And through that organization, those guys, I started researching, started getting into jiu-jitsu, started getting more MMA, started getting into my kickboxing a bit more. And I got frustrated with my old organization just because it just seemed like there was always more seminars to pay for, always more fees, and always more things you had to pay for. And it really wasn't about the training. And so I moved on, a matter of difference in the organizational beliefs, the politics, which we all hate in Krav Maga. At least I think so. And then one of my friends that was with me, his name is Anthony Kuntz. He has Martial Arts Advantage in Tampa. He called me up and having the same frustrations. He was part of the International Haganah Federation board. And he's like, dude, I'm frustrated too. I want to kind of evolve, but, tired of the politics. So I have this guy I've been trying to get a hold of in Jerusalem. I'm flying him out, man. Why don't you guys bring your guys up here and come up and train? And we did. I got in a car. I said, you know what? I don't want about affiliation. I'm kind of done with Krav Maga. I'm kind of burnt out, but we'll go. And I went, and the guest instructor was Shura Richmond from Jerusalem. And he was a super, like the opposite of everything I was showed over the years. Super humble, super down to earth. And as soon as he started teaching, he started hitting gaps and things that frustrated me in the Krav world. And he hit it so nicely without talking bad about other systems. And it was like, you can tell the authenticity and the humbleness and the simplicity of his techniques, that I was like, this is what I've been looking for. This is what I've been searching for. And yo, where do I sign up? Can I be part of your? And that was a really good weekend. So that was how I got introduced to ICCS, to an old friend from Haganah Fight Federation, and jumped on there. And that was over about 7 years ago, about the same time I met you.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
So what were some of the gaps that you were frustrated with the Krav Maga that you were doing before that?
I think there's a problem with American Krav Maga. I think because, the politics and the financial things behind the systems, they're kind of diluting some of the art. And we're trying to make things complex when it shouldn't be so complex. If it's truly a reality-based self-defense system, it should be simple. It doesn't have to be choreographed moves. It doesn't have to be complex tasks. If you can't react right away, then it's pardon my French, it's bullshit.
Right.
And I think sometimes we tend to, when we experience an art for a long time, we want to make it more technical. And that's not really in the same philosophy as what contact combat should be. You need to, have simple movements that are tested with aggression. And I think some organizations are trying to keep people longer and try to retain their instructors. And so therefore they're trying to make these complex movements. It becomes like kata almost like a traditional martial art. And I think it's kind of scary because it's not rooted in what Krav Maga is. Krav Maga is a reality-based self-defense system made for the military that, is simple, and it should be effective under stress. And when we start doing, adding Kali moves or, Jiu Jitsu to our Krav, it's starting to dilute what the essence of that art is. And that's really prevalent in a lot of martial art industries because there's traditional martial artists, karate guys, taekwondo guys, judo guys, and they're trying to make a martial art out of a system for military. And it's not a martial art. I mean, it is in the sense of what we understand martial arts here in the States and North America, but it's not, it shouldn't be about a belt. It shouldn't be about, you got to learn this pattern for this pattern to this pattern, and you can come to this camp now. And I think that's a problem. That's a huge problem in Krav. So that's a mouthful. Sorry, man.
No. But this is the important discussions that kind of need to happen in the industry. And I have noticed that, certain Krav systems do seem to be just layering on like a million techniques, right? A million variations for one thing, where we know that when you need your Krav, everything goes out the window, right? Like when you get that adrenaline dump, it's not something that's you don't have access to your fine motor skills. You're not going to be able to recall 10 different self-defenses for every little variation of like a wrist grab or a chokehold, right? And
yes. No, yeah. So like a prime example that just irritated me for a long time, being a guy who is, an MMA guy, fought kickboxing. I love Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, when I see knife defenses, it's cringy. You're going to get stabbed. Knife defenses, worst case scenario, most knife defenses are not going to be in a frontal zone and get attacked. You're getting attacked from angles you don't even realize is happening. The data and the statistics out there are coming from angles that you're not aware of. Next thing you know, you feel a big pain, you look and you're bleeding and you're in shock. A lot of the things that are being taught, like for knife defenses, are not authentic. From this way, I turn this way. When I turn this way, I flip my wrist. I use a hand this way and deflect this way. It's just like it doesn't work under stress. And I think sometimes we are caught up in making a martial art out of a non-martial art, and we tend to over-technique it. So we keep people longer, and we try to, if we're an organization, we're going to charge you for another seminar and another seminar and another seminar, and it's just not right. And so a lot of people are teaching these camps and this art. They go to a week-long or a weekend-long certification camp, and now they're certified when they really haven't learned how to take a jab or a cross, and they don't know how to sprawl when somebody takes their leg. They don't understand how to get up when somebody's on top of them from the ground. I mean, there's deficits in just the basics, and let alone talking about knife and gun defense. I think in the industry, the gun and knife is overly sexy. They try to sell it to make you feel like a commando, and it's not tactical at all, man. A knife and gun should be the last thing you practice. The first thing you should practice over and over again for a year is how to box. If you can't strike, you can't fight. And so a jab and a cross, I'd rather you spend time with me doing this for 6 months than worry about a gun defense or a knife stabbing. Those are important. You need to take a look at them. You need to build in your curriculum, but it shouldn't be everything. And I think that's where we're going wrong in the industry. They're focusing on the sexy, cool stuff. They're not focusing on the basics because they don't know how to teach it effectively to retain students.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I've talked to a lot of instructors, and there is a frustration that I'm talking about people that certify other people, that the quality just isn't there anymore. That people are being certified in Krav that shouldn't really be certified at all.
Yeah. I think that's a numbers game. You know how industries make money and how associations make money that get more members. And unfortunately, with more people, there's a delusion of what they expect. And, everybody wants a certificate, and everybody wants a sticker. And that's not always good, And so, you got to choose a system or a team that believes the same as you and that inspires you to become better. And, I think that's important if you're going to continue to be in Krav Maga,
Yeah.
If I didn't meet Sharir, I would not have Krav Maga on my doors. And Krav Maga is a huge program in my school here in Fort Myers, Estero area. So, yeah.
So when someone first comes into your studio, what do you do with them? Like, what do you want them to focus on first?
So if they sign up for our Krav program, because we have multiple programs and multiple teams in my gym, the first thing we do always, ICCS is uniquely different. And I think that's the refreshing part for me is how we instruct. The first 15 minutes of any ICCS Krav Maga class is going to be boxing. And so when we say boxing, we're talking basics: a jab, a cross, a hook, an uppercut, how to cover, how to parry, how to use ankles, how to move. And that's like the first 15 minutes of every class. So you come in my class, no matter what level, how long you've been training, that's what we do, because, we believe that if you can't strike, you can't fight. And we're not going to go over, scenarios where I'm choking you, I'm bear hugging you, over and over again. That's part of our curriculum. Those are street combatives, but it's mainly about developing that mindset to be able to fight. And the only way you fight is box a lot and spar a lot. So, and you can do it in a safe way. I have people from all walks of life. In Southwest Florida, we have a huge retirement community. I have one of the biggest universities in my hometown. And so I have college kids, I have professional amateur fighters, and I also have grandma who's retired in her mid-60s that wants to do self-defense and get out of the house. And so they're all in the same class. And it's unique to see. It's because we set up a culture that, we're family. And even with hundreds of members at my gym, everybody feels like part of that family, because the top, we lead by example, and we make sure that everybody's helping each other out. It's not about you all the time. It's about, rising the tide for all ships to sail. And so it's super, super, super important to build the right culture. I think sometimes traditional martial artists get into Krav Maga and they think you have to be macho and you have to be aggressive. I was, when the first time I started teaching Krav in the early 2000s. I'm actually downright embarrassed if I go look at my classes back then, if I look at them like right now and how we treated things, because I was feeling egoness and cockiness up with a lack of technique. And so as time went on, and I've become more versed in black belts and other arts that supplement my Krav, it's changed the culture. We're down to earth. People are working hard, but you don't have to be a jerk about it.
Yeah. So. Yeah. You don't have to be a jerk to be able to defend yourself properly, right?
Yes, sir.
So, do you guys? So does ICCS run like the similar, the stress drills and all that stuff as well?
I think what separates our organization, number one, our founder, Sharir, is an American that moved to Israel on his birthright, and he stayed. And he's also an Israeli special ops veteran. And so he also owns one of few schools of MMA in Jerusalem. So not only does he help teach the Dudavan units for the special ops counter-terror units, he's their hand-to-hand instructor. He's there with a team of instructors, and he's one of the head ones there. So he's there twice a week, still teaching the IDF, and then also running and teaching and running his own MMA school in Jerusalem. And so he has a unique perspective, and so that kind of influences the way we teach as well. It's a lot of boxing, and then we have the incorporation of the military mindset. And so what really separates us, a lot of it's copied now because his system's been around for a little while, is the shapats. The shapats is a Hebrew word that means training vest. It's just training vest. And the shapats is, if you watch any shows or movies or reality shows that are recently on Discovery the last 10 years, you see the Israelis in the military train with their fatigues, and then they have a helmet on, a crotch protector, boxing gloves, and a vest, right? The vest is not a bulletproof vest. It's just a soft vest. So when they train the mentality of aggression or warrior development, they beat the hell out of each other, right to the body. Not hits to the head, but all to the body nonstop. 10 people, 4 people, one-on-one, multiple drills. Well, that's right from the Israeli teaching methodologies. And so one thing that we do uniquely is that we incorporate Shapat's training. Sharir, if you're an Iccs affiliate, he actually gets them customly made. You can't buy them anywhere. And then he ships them from Jerusalem to your school. And so the Shapat's training is it's a game changer for us because you can practice 100% resistance without a lot of injuries, just like you would if you were training in a basic boot camp for Krav Maga in the military. So those Shapat's training, it's like it's a game changer because, for example, a knife defense. I have a rubber knife. I got a Shapat's on, got eye protection and helmet on. You got a Shapat's on, same gear, and next thing you know, we say go, and now the guy has to violently stab them as much as they can, as quickly as they can, as a sewing machine, as fast as you can. And then if your technique works, then it should work. And so a lot of people learn real quick, if I block and deflect, I go backwards, I get stabbed. If I try to grab it with my hand, I get stabbed and stabbed and stabbed again. I try to go too aggressive, next thing I'm on my back and he's stabbing me. And the only reason why people can practice that way is because of that Shapat's training vest. So it really allows you to be almost 100%. I wouldn't say 100% because there's safety concerns depending on who's versus who. We try to make same weight classes, that kind of stuff. But the Shapat's training really changes the mindset and makes you realize that simple is better, and it keeps the BS out of your training. So that's what separates us, if that makes sense. I don't know if
that totally makes sense. And at what, do you have certain requirements before people start doing that sort of training?
Yes. Yeah. So Shapat's training is not every class. We try to do it once a month in our rotating curriculum. And so once a month, just to get a realization of, hey, don't forget, at the end of the day, we're training for reality and stressing this. And so the Shapat's is pulled out and we do a week of Shapat's. And then most of the students are loving it. Some are scared because they heard about it. And it's like a rite of passage. Like I survived my first Shapat's training. Nice. But it's a rite of passage. And after you do it a few months, 6 months in, we've really harnessed a different mindset that we can't mimic in just basic sparring and not in just scenario-based training. And so it's what the military does. I mean, think about it. They don't train, most people don't train advanced Krav Maga that America, does. When they go to Krav Maga training, it's just boot camp and it's nonstop, just boxing the hell out of each other. They don't even learn really authentic technique in boot camp. It's just aggression training to make that mindset differently. It's not about, do I know this block or this block? It's really more about aggression development. And so now they're soldiers and they think like warriors versus, I'm really good at these 30 techniques. It doesn't work that way. And so that's what I love about Iccs. That's intertwined nicely. And then if you do it right and you teach it right, you're going to retain a really awesome program and develop the authentic self-defense, not some, I would like to say, confidence, bad confidence, where they teach, it's like, how do I say, my brain's off right now. Illusion that you can protect yourself. A lot of Krav Maga programs, they're teaching things that are not effective and it can get you hurt or killed. And it's scary out there. And then if you don't BS test your stuff, you don't put the stress on it, you're not going to know if it works or not. And that's the big indicator of what's different with Sharir's Krav Maga. So,
yeah. So no, I forgot my question.
That's okay. Sorry, I talk a lot.
No, that's fine. Now I'm thrown. Okay, so they don't do it all the time, and you've got a certain level. So how do you? Is it that training that helps develop that military warrior mindset, or do you have other methods that help the student become or get the right mindset?
Yeah. So definitely there's all facets of training, right? So the Shapat's once a month is a really, really good tool, and it's the tool. That's what separates our organization from a lot. But then the next tool is obviously boxing. We do a lot of drills that, we're boxing each other. We do a lot of Dutch style, which, that Dutch style training gives you the timing and awareness to deflect. And so you develop range. But then we hit a lot of combinations to skill development, and then we spar. At the end of the day, you can't spar enough, and you have to spar in a way that you get hit and you feel what it's like to get hit, and that's important too, because some people they're paper warriors. They get their certificates and they sit back on those papers and they don't train anymore. You gotta spar. You gotta get hit. It doesn't mean you're going to hurt yourself. You do it in a culture in a way that is safe for everybody, but you got to feel that glove against your face. You got to feel you're getting tired and overwhelmed, and that's another way. So just a lot of sparring. And then, our advanced levels, our intermediate levels and above, we start to do, throw in the kicks and the knees and the clinch. And then we go into the ground, and then it's basically, MMA for the streets.
Right.
So super important. So sparring, a lot of sparring, guys. Think about it. All these schools that make all these scenario-based training, come to this camp, learn more scenarios. And now they're throwing in firearms and weapons, which is awesome. You need to learn that stuff. But at the end of the day, do you know how to box? Do you know how to take a hit? And think about infinitely how many lessons we can come up with just a jab. Just a jab. How many lessons can we do? How can we retain students for 6 months to a year just learning how to use the jab right? There's infinite amount of lesson plans that you can create and make variety, and not just over technique it to make it look cool with guns and knives, So I don't know. Just it's we have to think differently. We have to think about what's more important. More important is boxing versus the gun disarm from a hostage style from behind the head.
So the people start with boxing like right away then.
Oh God, yes, please get those hands up.
Yeah. So because a lot of places the people don't spar right away, right? Mm-hmm. It's kind of like they wait and then spar later on.
We spar right away, but you have to teach a culture. Like, those people are not versed in combat martial arts. Like, they don't know Muay Thai, kickboxing, not MMA. You need to develop a culture that's incorporated with Dutch style, where we do hand in hand. And now, as I'm holding, instead of holding pads, you have your hands out, and now that turns into a block or a parry, because I've been doing this for so long. So how you teach striking definitely can get a person ready the first month to spar lightly. Right. It's a culture thing. It's a lack of knowledge by the instructor's parts, and that's something you can't learn in a weekend certification. You know what I'm saying? Come on.
It'd be pretty difficult.
Is your instructor evolving and training in other combat arts? If not, just going to a Krav camp is not going to solve that.
No. And then the other problem that happens is if they've never been hit, right? If they're in some sort of altercation and they get hit, they could be really good at 30 different techniques, like you said, but once you're hit, that changes the game, right? All of a sudden, everything's out the window, and they could freeze, right?
Yeah. So for our ICCS, we're a small family, and Shreya likes it that way. ICCS is fairly large in Europe, but in North America, right now in the United States, I'm the ICCS USA director. And so I'm in touch with all our affiliates in the United States. Shreya calls us not directors. He says that on his website, but he calls us the boss, USA boss, Josh. Yeah, and that's the way he is. He's so funny. But basically, it's like when it comes to training, I lost my train of thought there, buddy. I had a point there to make.
We were talking about like people could know 30 techniques, but then they get hit and they freeze, right?
Yeah. So when you freeze, that's a liability. If you spar a lot and if you train a lot, you got to keep evolving. And so one of the qualifications for ICCS as an instructor, we have kind of a little bit harder way to get part of our organization. One of the criteria is, have you done any kind of amateur fights? Have you done kickboxing events? Have you done any grappling events? Have you fought amateur MMA? Have you done pro events? If you haven't, then one of our requirements before you can even come see us is you actually go ahead and train in one of those arts for a year. And so that's a really hard requirement, because we're kicking ourselves in the foot getting our organization bigger in the United States, because, a lot of people are not going to like that. If they're a master in traditional arts and they say, hey, you have to train more before you can come see us, that can be a problem. And so, but we're okay with that, because we want a small family that has quality, not quantity. And the only way to do that is if you actually train in combat martial arts. You got to feel what it feels to get hit. You can't be doing point sparring and calling that combat martial arts. And so that's my point, is that, setting a criteria that people can obtain through time, but it's not impossible, and also we were asking you to grow as a martial artist. And so that's super important. So that's my point.
and in reality, that is close to the core of what Krav Maga is, because Krav Maga wasn't born in a vacuum. It took from every style, and it would, and the Kravists of old would bring in people from Japan and from all over the world to train, and then to learn from them, right? And then that's how Krav Maga sort of started, like, evolved and then adapted to civilian and military and law enforcement and all the different variations that we have. So yeah, asking your instructors to evolve is not unreasonable, right?
Yeah. And, when a person gets hit too, the reality is they're more humble. They're also more willing to accept that no matter what you look like, people can be dangerous. And that's important. If you've never been hit and you've been practicing these scenarios for years on end on weekend camps, and then all of a sudden you get hit, your Krav's not going to save you. That's the worst time to experience that. So your training should get you prepared. If it doesn't, I have to relook about what I'm learning and how I'm training.
Yeah. So sometimes it's the quiet guy in the corner that's the most dangerous person in the room, and not the biggest guy or the loudest guy. Right. So
yes, sir. Agreed.
So you just have to assume that everybody's better than you when you go into a fight, right?
Yeah. Krav Maga, it's a Hebrew word. We like tend to make fancy words, and then we do this cool system. It's unique. It's not so unique anymore. And what it really means is contact combat. It's Hebrew for contact combat.
Yep.
So if I hit you and you hit me, that's Krav Maga. If I grapple you and you grapple me, that's Krav Maga. It's not some street scenarios for knife and gun defense and a chokehold here and a bear hug there. It's contact. It's mixed martial arts for the streets. With a military aggression training mindset. And that's what it is. And so if we say it that way, it makes more sense, at least in my opinion,
Well, looking at it that way, it opens up that there's many different ways to practice Krav Maga, right? Rather than it's one standardized way, like it has to be just scenarios or has to be just sparring. Or
those Krav Maga people that do that are paying homage to an old Krav, a martial art. Krav Maga is not the same it was in the 1940s it is now. Obviously, it evolves. The military evolves. The 1911 pistol, it's evolved since then, right? Do militaries all use 1911 pistols anymore? No, they don't. There's so many variations of the pistol because it evolves through time. It's the same thing with Krav. If the Krav's not evolving, then what are you really learning here? You're not evolving with technology. You're not evolving with times. You're not evolving with, the average person now. How many people are sitting at home drinking beers watching the UFC? They're learning more and they're getting more competent than they ever have in the past. It's not like the days of the pride fights where only the Japanese clap for good technique. Now Americans are starting to learn. So imagine how many people are couch potatoes that are actually learning martial arts by watching, so your Krav has to evolve, man. Your technique has to evolve.
Yeah. And it's already been proven that you can learn MMA and boxing and kickboxing from videotapes, DVDs, online streaming, right? I can't even remember what his name was, but there was a guy in the UFC that learned his striking from videotapes, right?
Yeah, I mean, dude, we learn. We're on video right now. We're talking across the country right now. I mean, video and learning is a different way now with cell phones and iPads. I'm 22 years as an educator in the state of Florida. I teach as my day job. I also have my martial arts school that's really thriving. But way that people take in information, I think video is where it's at. And people don't like to say, "Oh, don't look at a videotape." I teach Jiu Jitsu. You know how many techniques that I picked up through looking on online instructionals for footlocks and things that my professor never taught me. So it's definitely a good medium to add to. But at the end of the day, what is your foundation? What are you training and what are you looking at? Is it quality? you definitely got to have those checks and balances, the bullshit meter.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And video has its place because after all, that's what boxers do, right?
Mm-hmm.
And kickboxers do before a fight, right? And they analyze, they watch the fights of their competitors and analyze them, right? It's like, and we know we've all sat there as Duke analyzes the match, and he's telling you what's going to happen before it even happens, right?
Yeah, Duke Rufus, right? We're talking about Duke Rufus.
Yep.
That's how I met you. I'm a Rufus Sport affiliate, also black belt under him, which is an honor. I'll see him this Saturday, actually. He's flying down to Florida for a seminar, so I can't wait to see my friend. But long story short, he's the one that told me years ago. He's like, hey, man, you know how often I look at video on fights from old guys from the golden era of Muay Thai? He's shared so many times. He's one of the best top 10 striking coaches of all professional mixed martial arts. And, the guy, says, hey, even I look at video to supplement my training. So we're always learning, always evolving,
Yeah. It's a tool, right? Like everything else.
Sir.
And I think it's important as well as learning from various different people. All right.
Mm-hmm.
So just like you cross train MMA with kickboxing, with Jiu Jitsu, and incorporate some of that stuff into your Krav, it's important to train with different Kravists and different people in all the industry, because you can always learn something, right? Or at the very least, learn what not to do. And
I think being a sparring and learning, getting caught in a triangle, getting caught in a guillotine, getting caught with a switch kick to the head, these are things that if you truly want self-defense and reality-based self-defense, you definitely have to put yourself in bad positions and get comfortable with that. And a lot of people don't want to do that because they think they have to be, if they're a teacher or a high-ranking Krav person, they don't put themselves in those situations because all they need is their one style. And that's not true. You've got to constantly evolve and learn all facets of the game, just like a mixed martial artist would.
Yeah. Exactly.
Stay relevant,
Exactly. Because if that sort of stress isn't put on you, how do you know how you're going to react? Like I remember my first jiu-jitsu class, and this guy gets on top of me and I feel like I'm suffocating, and I can't get out from under him. And I'm like, what would I do? Like, what would I do in real life? Well, I knew what I would do, but I mean, that wouldn't have been legal on that mat. But but I mean, like, you could feel like the onset of that panic.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And just by repeatedly being put in that situation, you get used to it.
For sure.
So that you can think through it.
Yeah. And even the Krav guy needs to evolve in jiu-jitsu to feel that. And the jiu-jitsu guy too. Yeah. I'm a jiu-jitsu black belt, Carlson Gracie black belt under Daniel Wanderlei. You got to learn knife defense and gun defense and standing on your feet and how to strike. Like, guys who do authentic Krav Maga learn how to box and spar. If you've never felt that as a jiu-jitsu guy, you're in trouble as well. It works both ways, Yeah.
Yeah.
So
makes it well-rounded. So
yes, sir.
So if people wanted to get in touch with you and come out and train, whether it's in Krav MMA or kickboxing, how would they just give us like where your studio is exactly and website?
So my website for my school, which is a lead acquisition site, you won't find a lot of personal information on there, but there'll be the address and the phone number to get a contact of us, which is info@traininggroundsma.com. So traininggroundsma.com is my website. I'm on social media, Facebook and Instagram, tgroundsmma.com, at tgroundsmma on Instagram. But that's also our Facebook handle as well. And through there, that's a good way to contact me personally. Jiu-jitsu, Muay Thai. I live in a vacation destination. A lot of Canadian people come down to Southwest Florida to vacation. Hopefully this pandemic in the next few months gets to die down and life comes back again after this variant passes through the country. But, you guys are always welcome. My school is open doors. We have no ego whatsoever. I have a staff that's scared. We house about 350 active members right now, mostly adults. I have about 60 kids. The rest are all adults and a fairly large program. But we also have ICCS website. I'm the USA director. ICCSKravMaga.com, which is a site that we got back. We had some problems with that website a few years ago with a partner, Sharir. It will be publicized. I got it back for them. We're going to have our new website up within the next 2 weeks. Nice. And then we also have ICCS, which is Israeli Contact Combat. It's all dashes in between the words.com. And that's our current site right now. And that's how you can get a hold of Sharir and myself. And there's links for all the country bosses from Spain to Italy. What I love about ICCS, it is truly international. And one of my favorite vacations is when I, in 19, right before COVID, Sharir asked me to come teach at our international conference for instructors. And I got to teach jiu-jitsu to all the ICCS countries from Belgium, France, Spain, Switzerland. It was amazing. So we truly have an awesome family. It's not just about a system or a rank or a certificate that says you're awesome. It's really about training with each other and seeing family. So ICCS is where it's at for me, man. Like I said, I would not be part of Krav Maga anymore if just strictly MMA, Jiu Jitsu, and Muay Thai if it wasn't for Sharir. If you're not fortunate to meet a Sharir in your life, just look at your curriculum and how you train, and always respect whoever teaches you. As martial artists, as a business owner, I know you, Paul, relate to this. It's a sacrifice. We're trying to make a way of life in martial arts. Always respect whoever showed you the arts. Be loyal, be awesome, but also it's not a cult. You are a student. And so make sure that you have a list of things that you need to do to make yourself better. And if you suck at wrestling, takedowns, practice more wrestling. If you suck at boxing, do more boxing. All of that's going to make your Krav Maga next level. So again, our website is at traininggroundsma.com or iccs.com. That's where you get a hold of us. We have a North American camp coming up at my school in Southwest Florida the first weekend of November. We have about 5 schools that'll be here. It's open to students as well. You don't have to be affiliated with us to do our first level 1 camp. It's just open to anybody. We don't care. We just as long as we get to meet you and see you in person. For us, it's very, very, very non-expensive to train with us. We just want to see you once a year. And that's it. If you want to be part of our organization, it's about training with us once a year. If I don't see you, Sharir doesn't see you once a year, then you're no longer affiliated with ICCS. And it's that simple. No more politics, So
yeah, no more politics.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for coming on Krav Life, and this has been an interesting interview, and hopefully I get to travel again and come down there to Florida and visit you guys.
It would be an honor, Paul. You're amazing, man. I really appreciate the opportunity, man. I love to get out the ICCS word. I don't get to do it very often, so thank you so much.
Not a problem. All right, thank you.
Thanks.